went by your house. There's a for sale sign out.
Yeah, it's sold. Got a good price.
Every time I come home, I stop here and just look for a minute. You want to look with me?
Sure.
He was the blue-eyed heartthrob who defined cool on the silver screen. But while Hollywood obsessed over his fame, Paul Newman was quietly rewriting what it meant to be a star. Behind the scenes, he gave away hundreds of millions. And almost no one knew. The charismatic rebel who refused to be just a movie star, Paul Newman, burst onto the scene in the 1950s, a striking mix of rugged charm and brooding sensitivity. From Cool Hand Luke to Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, his screen presence was undeniable. But Newman was never comfortable with the celebrity machine. He hated red carpets, dodged paparazzi, and loathed the idea of being idolized. To him, acting was a craft, not a crown. Even at the height of his fame, he found more satisfaction in racing cars than winning Oscars. He once said, "I'd like to be remembered as a guy who tried to be part of his community." This mindset would quietly shape a second, life that went far beyond the camera. He didn't just want to perform greatness, he wanted to do something with it. And so, away from the spotlight, Newman started building a legacy few knew existed. The birth of Newman's own. Charity in Newman, a bottle in 1982, Newman had an idea: sell his homemade salad dressing to raise money for good causes. It started as a joke. He and his friend A.E. Hotchner were bottling it in old wine bottles. But the dressing tasted great, and friends urged them to sell it. They did under one condition: every penny of profit would go to charity. No catch, no percentages, no boardroom loopholes, 100% went to those in need. That company became Newman's own, and it exploded in popularity. From salad dressing, it grew into popcorn, pasta sauce, lemonade, and more. Over time, it generated hundreds of millions of dollars, all donated. Newman didn't take a salary or use it for image polishing. In fact, he insisted his name only be used if it was funny. Shameless exploitation in pursuit of the common. Good. Camp for kids who'd been forgotten in 1988, Newman took his giving even further and founded the Hole in the Wall Gang camp in Connecticut. It was designed for children with cancer and serious illnesses, a place where they could just be kids. Horseback riding, archery, campfires, laughter, all free of charge. Newman personally visited often, away from the press, interacting with the children like a friend, not a celebrity. He wanted these kids to feel normal, not pitied. The camp became a safe haven for thousands, and it expanded worldwide. Today, the Serious Fun Children's Network, which grew from that first camp, has served over 1 million children and families across the globe. Newman believed that joy was healing, and he gave it generously. He once said, "There's a point where feelings go beyond words. I have that at the camp." It was one of the few places he truly let down his public guard. Funding the forgotten causes, Newman's philanthropy didn't stop at kids' camps or food sales. He was obsessed with helping causes that others ignored, those that weren't trendy or media-friendly. He quietly funded Native American communities, inner-city education programs, and AIDS research. He donated millions to environmental preservation and clean water efforts. He supported war veterans, refugees, and small arts organizations on the verge of collapse. He believed money should go to the margins, to the people nobody talked about. His foundation received thousands of letters, and he read many of them personally. If a need was genuine, he didn't care how obscure it was. He helped. He avoided the spotlight and rarely allowed his donations to be publicized. For Newman, charity wasn't PR, it was purpose. He hid his name, but never his impact. Most of Newman's donations were anonymous. He didn't want people to thank him. In fact, he often requested not to be listed at all. He was once offered a major award for philanthropy and refused to attend the ceremony. He believed being praised for giving took away the purity of the act. To him, real charity was done in silence, but his fingerprints were everywhere, from hospitals to food banks to schools. In some towns, Newman's grants saved entire community programs from being shut down. Yet if you asked him about it, he'd deflect. He'd rather talk about racing than writing checks. This humility made his generosity even more powerful. He didn't just give money, he gave dignity without asking for a thank you. A marriage. Fueled by Activism, Newman's wife, Joanne Woodward, was not just a celebrated actress, but a fierce activist. Together, they were a quiet powerhouse for progressive causes. They marched for civil rights, stood against war, and promoted education and equality. Their home became a hub for writers, thinkers, and reformers, not Hollywood parties. Newman often said Joanne kept him grounded and challenged him morally. They raised their children with an emphasis on service, not celebrity. While other Hollywood couples chased glamour, they built a life based on depth. Their marriage lasted 50 years, a rare gem in showbiz. Joanne played a key role in shaping Newman's philanthropic legacy. They weren't just partners in love. They were co-creators of impact. Hollywood knew but didn't celebrate. Despite all he did, Hollywood rarely highlighted Newman's charitable empire. The media was more interested in his looks, his films, or his racing career. His foundation didn't throw lavish charity balls or invite paparazzi. Because of this, much of his giving flew under the radar, even among fans. Newman didn't mind. He preferred it that way. But some argue the industry missed an opportunity to showcase what a star could truly be. He wasn't just another handsome lead. He redefined what star power could mean. If Hollywood had celebrated him for how he gave, perhaps others would have followed sooner. Instead, Newman kept his light on others, never himself. And that, ironically, is what made him so extraordinary. After his death, a legacy that keeps giving. When Newman passed away in 2008, few people realized the scale of what he'd left behind. The Newman's own foundation continues to give away tens of millions each year. His camp network still changes lives across the world, each one inspired by his quiet vision. Even in death, he insisted the mission continue. Leave the world a little better than you found it. He had no monuments built in his name, no statues, no flashy foundations, just soup cans, campfires, and lives changed. He turned the idea of fame upside down, using it not to lift himself, but others. Few actors have left such a real-world legacy. Paul Newman's greatest performance wasn't in front of the camera. It was in the quiet, humble work he did when no one was watching. Lived his values to the end in his final years, Newman remained deeply involved in his charitable work. Even as he battled cancer, he spent time at the camps, in meetings, and reviewing grant proposals. He refused to let illness define his final act. Friends say he was more focused on how to give away his remaining fortune than on legacy. He left behind a model of philanthropy that's still studied in nonprofit circles today. He wanted his children to follow the work, not the fame, and many of them have continued his mission. Newman's final message to his foundation: keep it fun and keep giving. Even in his last breath, he thought about others. It was never about the applause. It was always about the impact. His greatest role: humanity over celebrities. The world hailed his film legacy. Paul Newman quietly played his most important role: a humanitarian. He didn't just donate money. He helped rewrite the rules for what philanthropy could look like. His foundation set new standards for transparency and giving with integrity. He inspired celebrities to rethink their influence and use their platforms for something deeper. Newman turned every product into a purpose, every dollar into dignity. To this day, Newman's Own has donated over $600 million to thousands of causes. He proved that a man could be iconic without ego, wealthy without greed, and famous without being self-obsessed. Even in a world obsessed with fame, he quietly chose humility. Paul Newman didn't just leave behind movies, he left behind a movement. And that movement still feeds, heals, and uplifts lives every single day. Paul Newman didn't just play heroes, he quietly became one. While the world watched his movies, he was changing it behind the scenes. And in the end, the most beautiful thing he ever made wasn't a film, it was hope.